Connie, I just watched you covering up that tray. You've already made it last week.
I dry the trays really slowly. The added handles, I don't want them to crack where they're attached to the rim. The rim was a little drier than the handles. And I don't want the tray to warp, so I dry it really slowly. And I also change out the board underneath it because it gets wet, and I put a drier one underneath it and then wrap it again.
Because porcelain have a tendency to go up, right?
Yes.
And the same thing with the teapot. Is it just to keep the spout?
Yes, if you can see that I had the teapot uncovered for a little while, and the spout and the lug start drying out first, and I don't want any cracking to occur, so I'm going to cover this a little longer.
So that is basically wrapping up your online class. Are you excited about it?
Yes, I am. It's the first time I've been filmed, and I was quite nervous about it. But Coos made it pretty easy.
Is with that camera right into your face sometimes?
Yes.
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes not. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
Well, I just realized that I'm sitting here with my cup. I'm just going to claim this one right away. It's one of the cups that you've made. One of the main reasons why we wanted for you to do this workshop is, for one, you're making a much sturdier, functional kind of porcelain than I am making. And, watching you while you were working, you were so precise in your way of working. And I just love that. Give me a little bit of insight of how you decided to come up with this specific series of the teapots and the mugs and the cups and the lidded jar. It's making a set. Tell me about it.
When I went to Nsika in March, I purchased a new faceting tool, and I really liked that, so I started working on teapots and then proceeded on to sugar and creamer, and then covered jars, and trying it across the top of the lid. And I really liked the effect of the faceting, so I just kind of want to work with that for a while.
You have some chinos here, and I get to know you for your chino work, but you also recently came up with some celadons, which is what we see in front of us here. Tell me about your celadon glazes.
I found a recipe for an amber celadon that I really liked, and but I like green better, so I worked with the glaze and did some testing and came up with this green celadon. I like the way celadons break over edges, and with the faceting tool I can create all these edges for that glaze to break over.
Is there not one that had a little bit more, I think it's this one, a little bit more crystal forming on it?
That's one thing I like about this glaze, is these little crystals that form in it, and it's where it's a little bit thicker, and also the cooling has a big effect on it. Mm-hmm. The last kiln load I unloaded right before I came here had some pieces that had a lot of crystals, and those were in a cooler part of the kiln. And it's the areas of the kiln that cool slower that affect the crystals on it. It's that slow cooling that allows those crystals to grow.
Wow. Yeah, it's crystal growth is always happening when it goes a little slower. You also, some people call you the Queen of Chinos. You learned from Malcolm Davis before.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I took a workshop from Malcolm and learned as much as I could about the chinos. And another way I learned about him was a 4-part series Clay Times had on chinos that Pete Pinnell wrote. And so I really liked the chinos, and I started working with them a lot and playing with different ways of drying the glaze and trying to get the variation that you can get with chinos.
I'm looking forward to that. We're going to do another class with Connie. That's going to be a follow-up on this one, in which she's going to talk about her glazes and the way that she's using them. One of the things that I really enjoyed in your slideshow was how you showed that you dry the glaze slower so that you can get different effects with the chinos. That was amazing. In some instances you had landscapes that came out, and in other areas you had the boldness of the glaze itself. I just loved that. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's move on a little bit and talk a little bit about your career. You started at first when you observed a monk working in clay, and that threw your whole career plan overboard. Tell us a little bit about your career.
I was living on the Oregon coast, and I had a friend who was an ex-monk who was a potter. And he worked in a pottery shop in Otter Rock, that's where I lived, and I would watch him throw clay and fire and the excitement of it. And occasionally I got to work as a salesperson in a shop and then touch all the pots. And I was really fascinated by the process then and by the pots, but at that time I didn't consider it something that I could do.
Okay, and then what made the change?
I moved to Denver and I was working for a company where I was a graphic designer. I always loved photography. I wanted to be a photographer at one point. And they had a Photoshop or photo department in the building, and the company would pay for you to go back to school if it involved something to do within a company. So I decided to go back to school and get a degree in photography. But I hadn't been back to class for a very long time. I was getting close to 40, and decided to take a class that would, while working full-time, would get me into the routine of going to class in the evenings. And I took a throwing class. I don't know why, but it has nothing to do with photography.
I don't know why either.
But that first night in class, I just thought, I have to quit my job and do this. We had that much of an effect on me.
Just that? Just cold turkey?
Well, I couldn't just quit my job, but
okay.
I wanted to quit my job and do just that. And so I took a lot of classes at the Arvada Center for the Arts, especially from Robin Feruda, and a lot of workshops, classes from Jim Lorio at Front Range Community College. And a few years after I started taking classes, the company I worked for was doing a reduction in workforce, and one of my job was one of them that was included. And so I got a year's pay and a year's medical if I wanted to leave. And so I thought, this is the time.
Yeah.
So I made the leap.
Well, and we know that artists do not always have it easy. We are relying on the community to buy our work. We are relying on our co-artists to help us grow and become better artists. And I'm sure you went through all of that.
I put in a lot of time in the studio. I worked 7 days a week for maybe 20 years. I was even in the studio on holidays. I needed to perfect my skills so that my work would get good enough to be in galleries and shows and be able to earn a living.
And you succeeded in that because you've been in several shows. I did not even realize you were in that show with me. It was a cyber clay or a cyber art or a clay art show that
Yes.
was at the Nsika, I think it was in Louisville, if I remember correctly. This is just one of the shows that you've done, Connie. You've been in some very high-end shows in the past, including the Strictly Functional, in which you just got accepted. You want to tell me a little bit about the shows that you've done this far?
I've been in, I'm in Strictly Functional this year, and I've been in it a couple of other times. I've been in the Shino shows that Malcolm Davis had, including the Arvada Center, had an instructor show for Nsika that I was included in.
And the Avada Center is fairly significant. Apart from your normal duties, you're also part of the board.
That's the Arvada Ceramic Arts Guild.
You are pretty busy there, and you on the board. Am I correct?
Yes.
You're on the board there, but you're also constantly working there. You have a studio space out there. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
I've been at the Arvada Ceramic Arts Guild for 11 years. I'm the artist in residence there and also the current treasurer. It's a place where people can rent studio space or be a general member and not have actual space, but be able to work there. We have electric kilns, gas kilns, raku kilns, workspace.
It's a very beautiful facility that you have there. Connie, any future plans?
Keep working. I'm retirement age, but I don't plan on retiring, so.
If I can get the camera on these, let's go over here and look at what you've done this past week. I love the strength of your work. You know, there's certain phases that clay is just gorgeous. Of course, it's beautiful in the beginning, but then we're looking at a body of work here that is ready to go into the kiln. That's apart from the few pieces that we have still covered under plastic there. But this is what you're going to teach your online students, right?
Yes.
You already have an idea of how you're going to glaze it?
Yes, I do. I usually put a celadon on. Occasionally I'll use chinos, as in this mug has faceting, and I also excuse me, glazed in chino. But I like the way that celadons break over these edges. And in the workshop I use two different faceting tools. One where I use a twisted wire, and the other one where I use a plain cutoff wire, and you have wider facets on them. I'll also be making a cane handle for the teapot and pulling the handles on the cups.
I want to pull this handle in here. This is the one that you've made right here in the class. And I think it's a good place for us to have a few last words. How did you get into cane handles?
I saw an article by Sheila Clennell, and it showed how to make them, but she also had a video out, so I got the video and used that to learn how to make the handles.
And now you're going to teach other people to put handles on, because if they have a cane handle on a teapot, they can put them on a tray and many other objects that they would like to do that. Connie, it was such a pleasure having you out here. We had some fun in the studio, we had some fun outside of the studio, and now we're looking forward to see the end results, and we just have to get those students come pouring in. You are going to enjoy Connie's class. She's quiet, as you probably already noticed, but when she opens her mouth, there's just wisdom and a lot of good information that's coming out of there. Thank you so much, Connie. We appreciate it that you are sharing your information and your knowledge and your lifetime experiences with us.
Thank you, Antoinette. And I got to see Mississippi. It's the first time I've been here.
Great.